because it is 10 o'clock and this is Lancaster Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour number 148 for April 20th. I think it's Earth Day today. Well, welcome aboard, everybody. I see 31 on screen right now. They'll keep on coming in for a little while. This is a show and tell. I have some stuff, but I'm going to hold on to that for a little bit, and we're going to go around the room a bit. First of all, announcements. The next Lancaster Club meeting is May 2nd. I will be the demo. I'm going to tell you all about magnet boxes. The next Lancaster Open Shop, I guess, is the Saturday after that, although I'm not sure. We'll confirm that when we learn it. Anybody else got announcements? Randy, what's up with Susquehanna?
The second Tuesday in May.
That'll be the 9th.
And so that's really about it.
What's the topic?
Bill Gray is
I'm not even sure at this point.
Hey,
Okay.
Randy, we talked the last time.
Oh, hi, Tom.
Bill Gray is going to do a demo on his open segmented turning jig and how to assemble the bits of an open segmented turning. So he has, I asked him about it last December, and we talked about it last meeting, and he'll be doing that in May.
That sounds like a good one.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
One thing we did do at the last meeting was we had a hands-on event. It was really well, I really enjoyed myself. I don't usually turn bowls, but I'm getting into the dark side. And the other thing is the club decided to get the private insurance from AAW. It was $305, which wasn't very much more than the basic insurance. But the main thing that it covers, which the AAW insurance does not, is if you are having a demonstration or an event at a private residence, you are still covered by that insurance. So.
Okay, I guess I'll have to
about
look into that for our club as well, because we buy the standard AAW insurance that covers the club space. Yeah.
Right, but if you go to a person's private, like if they decided, if you sponsored an event at your house,
yeah,
that is not covered by the AAW, but it is by the private insurance.
Well, I'm sponsoring an event at my house right now, but I don't see a whole lot of possibility for anybody to get injured unless you eat your microphone or something. Okay, let's anybody else got any announcements? If not, I'm going to start with Doug.
John, the open shop is not the Saturday after the meeting. It's going to be on the 13th.
13th is open shop for the next Lancaster. All right. Thanks, Barry. Doug, what do you have today?
I have this bowl. I was up at a meeting up towards Allentown, and the challenge was made to use a cherry blank and then do something you've not done before. And I had got hold of some spinning tools for spinning metal. So I decided to try that out and put a metal wooden bowl together. Originally, as you can see, the bottom there is maple that to keep that steel or the aluminum on the surface. I decided to put a base on it, and the white of the maple showed up a little bit too much, so I dyed it black with a Sharpie marker. It's about 8 inches in diameter.
So that's an aluminum base that you spun on there, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And how did you do that? How thick was the aluminum, and how did you polish it? Lynn, tell us more about how this happened.
Well, first of all, being from an aluminum sheet plant, the aluminum was, I got some stuff that was actually designed for spinning. It's some bright sheet that people use for making lamps and stuff like that, because it takes less polishing. All I did is I made the bowl and literally take a disc of aluminum on the outside, clamp it between the base of the bowl and the bowl using the chuck, and then the tool just rubs against. And as you start at the inside, you can actually form the metal. Your tool sort of rides like this, and you can actually form the metal to be outside the bowl that way. And then
So the bowl was the mandrel that you formed the aluminum
Yes.
to. And
Yes.
did you make a recess that it's in, or is it flush on the surface? How did you get it to be flush
It-
on the surface?
it's flush on the surface, but you're pushing hard enough, it's flush anyway. And the other thing I did is also I put a little bit of a groove here so that I could actually, if it was a little bit loose, I could push it up a little bit so the surface went up and when it clamped in. And I also glued it on with CA glue just to make double sure. This line
Oh.
here, there's a line you can see just at the top here.
Yeah.
That's a groove that was I backfilled that with ink as well, just to make it look a little bit better.
So how thick was the aluminum when you started?
I think it's about 40 thousandths of an inch.
25th of an
0.04.
inch. 25th of an inch. Basically a millimeter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Maybe
did
a
you
couple.
do you stretch it out when you spin it, or does it just stay the same basic size and change shape?
It stretches it can stretch a little bit, but it basically stays the same size and shape. When I made a circle, I originally made the circle, I made it the diameter of this outer diameter, and because of a few, shall we say, learning opportunities, it came out a little bit sort of. This is the first time I've ever spun aluminum too, so it's like I did a little bit of copper, and it's not too bad. The tools I had, I was looking up for replacement tools on the internet, and the tools I had sort of gained a little bit of rust, and so all the spinning tools you'll ever see are extremely shiny. They got a mirror finish on it. That certainly makes a big difference to the quality of the spinning because you don't gall up and get them all full of copper. So I went back and polished my tools and did a bunch of other things to get that surface better. And then there's various varieties of spinning tools you can get. Mine were just straight sliding tools, but you can actually get them with wheels on them that will do a different job again. But effectively, it's just a matter of slowly going in. You don't do it all in one pass. You can do several passes, so that even though there's nothing behind it, it will still form because it has to go between the tool and the lathe as it's going up. So it may take 5 or 6 passes to get it down as tight as you want it.
Does it work harden while you're doing it and you have to anneal it?
Yes, it will.
And how do you relieve that?
You don't have to.
And how do you polish it?
I just used some. I went at it and got my a little felt buffing wheel and used some metal. The Beal polishing system.
Yeah.
I used the Beal polish on and on a little tiny buffing wheel, and that actually buffed it up quite nicely.
That learning opportunity didn't involve a wrinkle, did it?
It involved wrinkles. It involved a few other things. It involved a disc flying off the lathe. So it wasn't held correctly. The thing is that at the very beginning, you need to make sure that there's something in a step at the very beginning, because otherwise this whole thing comes off, and then you're done. Well, not done, but anyway, the whole thing comes off. And the wrinkles, it turns out that the wrinkles was just because I wasn't holding the tool hard enough. I got the wrinkle, and as soon as I pushed in harder on the tool, the wrinkle went away with the aluminum. Now, the temper of the aluminum starting was it was either O or very one of the softer tempers, and it's the alloy is a 5000 series. Often they use 5005 as the alloy because the magnesium actually helps the polish and gives you a much shinier finish than just straight 3003.
I'm kind of more interested in the copper that you've spun, and I know that I used to work copper, and it work hardens pretty fast, and you have to anneal it all as you go. How do you do that while spinning?
Oh, you don't. You have to take it off the lathe and put it in the furnace or do something along that line.
Okay.
So you can do multiple steps. Once you take this off, it's fairly easy to put it back and get it on the lathe. As far as shape is concerned, the thing they have to worry about is not the metal; it's the form, because the form being off center is what keeps you from getting a good centering on the spinning itself. So, if I was doing multiple ones of these, I would put the form on, true it up, and then, just leave the form on and do multiple shapes. I was going to make a fountain out of this by using smaller cups and make small cups out of it. And I did that with the copper as well. Because they're small size, it didn't have to anneal it. But with copper, when I tried the copper, I used I got some stuff that they use for flanging because that's O temper to start with. And that gives you a lot of leeway for at least the first part. But then you could then, if you took the copper, I think a blowtorch would be enough to anneal it. If you blowtorch the thing, you get it back to low temper. But you just have to take it off the lathe and do that separately.
Questions for Doug?
Do you have to coat the aluminum now to stop it from tarnishing with lacquer or something?
Technically, the answer to that is yes and no. I think it'll last a lot longer if you put a clear coat on it. And I'm scraping my memory, but any poly clear coat will go on the surface. But you have to make the thing with the aluminum and painting or coating it is you have to make sure it's really clean to start with. So you have to, before you coat it, you have to take a some sort of solvent to the surface to make it really clean. And as soon as you start taking solvent to the surface, you got to be worried about whether you take solvent to your wood as well. So getting those two together is a little bit more of a challenge.
Interesting. Mhm.
Anybody else? Questions for Doug?
Doug, as far as that cleaning, I think you can use vinegar. Is that right? To clean it? And
Yeah, probably. It's a very light acid. Yes,
Okay.
I would suspect so. I just went out and started off using mineral spirits and a few things like that to clean it off, because just any solvent will do the cleaning on the aluminum. It's pretty. Oh, the other thing you have to be careful about is if you think wood dust is explosive, be careful about aluminum dust. The solid booster rockets are actually powdered aluminum that go off with oxygen. It's 2.5 times the explosive rate of TNT. So it.
Well, do you get any powdered aluminum off when you're doing this?
Well, what I do is put a Vaseline or something on the surface so there's a lubricant on there. So you make sure there's nothing dry around. But if you're cutting or anything, or if you see any dust at all, it's time to put more lubricant on the surface. You know, you just, and again, goose grease, any lubricant will do. Some are better than others. Stearic acid is the best one. You can probably the best one, but it's still, you know, any solid lubricant will do for this job.
I'm surprised to hear that powdered aluminum is that explosive. I used to use it in canoe dope to keep protect Dacron fabric from ultraviolet light. You mix that into your lacquer, and it gives it a UV proof coating. The stuff pours like liquid aluminum powder in a can. It's basically a liquid.
Yeah. Well, as I said, it's you have to introduce it in the right sequence there. So it's only once it's all solid, I think it's reasonably safe. But I can just tell you that is in fact what blew up the space shuttle, was this powdered aluminum got out of control.
Yeah.
The burning went off in the wrong place. Instead of through the rockets, it went through the side of everything else.
Okay. That's a really interesting technique. I'd like to see a demo of it on video sometime from you. I didn't even come over to shoot that.
Okay, we'll make a date.
Good. Thank you, Doug.
You bet. Take care.
Yeah. How about you, Bill Major? What do you have today?
I have a bowl that I should really include Doug Reeser on the show of this. Am I unmuted?
Yeah, you're unmuted. Talk. Your mic's a little soft though. If you got any more volume, turn it up.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah, a little bit. But let's see the bowl. Hold it up.
Yeah. This was a really hard project because of how the log was cut. It was a crotch. The two pieces in the front on my fingers were the other limbs going out, and the bottom is where the other part of the tree was. I worked on this off and on for 3 months, and I learned so much. And I want to especially thank Doug Reeser, because he was instrumental in me not giving up on this thing. We worked on it at the workshop 3 times, I think. And then toward the end, he even came to my house and helped me do some things on it here at the house. So,
Tell us what you learned. I mean, you said you learned so much. What did you learn?
well, I learned how to use a bowl gouge for one thing. I wasn't doing that right. I learned that once you put a faceplate or something to mount the piece you want to turn, don't take it off until you're done. I had to remount this thing numerous times, and it was difficult to figure out the next step. But we did figure it out, and there's a lot of imperfections in this, but I wanted to learn from the imperfections and see what I ended up with. And I personally like this. It's got some cracks in it, and I guess I can decide later to fill the cracks. But I was just really proud of this very first bowl that took basically 3 months to turn, stop and start.
Did you feel at risk of it coming apart at any point? I mean, I wouldn't turn wood like that. It looks like it's too dangerous. It'll blow apart.
I did feel a little bit concerned one time, so I put some CA in the cracks, but the biggest crack was on the bottom, and I didn't do anything about that. I just this crack right here. It's hard to go. Yeah, I just wanted to see what would happen, so I had on my safety glasses, my regular glasses, my shield, lots of things to protect me. And I was only going at like less than 400 RPMs on the spindle speed. That's one of the reasons why I almost gave up on it, because this was so heavy on one side that I couldn't get up enough speed to turn it. So I eventually got it up to about 400, and that was enough to turn it. But I have a whole series of pictures. Doug said I should put the whole series on there for people to see what I did and how I learned from it. And maybe I'll do that if you guys are interested in seeing like a half a dozen pictures of this.
Yeah, you got them ready now, or you want to do it another time?
I don't have them ready now. I'll do it another.
Any questions for Bill? Questions and comments?
Just one comment, Bill. Don't fool yourself thinking CA is going to hold that together. CA won't even come close to withstanding the centrifugal forces if that split falls apart.
Okay, thanks for that tip. I also stand off to the side. I don't want to be in the line of fire.
I think that's the main thing that you can do to protect yourself, is don't be where it's going to go.
Right. But it was fun. I'm happy with it because a couple guys at the club told me there's plenty of good wood out there. Throw that away. And I wanted to learn from it, so I stayed with it. And I'm glad I did.
Bill, can I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
When you're worried about something like that, what I do is take saran wrap and go around it a couple dozen times. And if it were to come apart, at least it won't fly away. It gives you a little extra strength when you're on the inside of the bowl. It's just a thought. I love the challenge of something like that. But I think they said it was right. The centrifugal forces for a weight like that at 400 or so RPM, the CA wouldn't hold it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can use pallet wrap the same way. Pallet wrap or saran wrap, even tape, 2-inch tape.
Yeah.
Do you think a recess like that with a split there is a little problematic rather than a tenon?
I had a tenon, and I took it off in the finishing step. I didn't really see the crack as a problem because it wasn't moving, it wasn't getting bigger.
It won't get bigger until it lets go.
That's right.
Well, I didn't know that either. But keep teaching me, guys. Keep teaching me.
Well, I think you came out lucky on that one. I think that was a risky piece, and I admire your courage in doing your first bowl with such a risky piece of wood.
Thank you.
I was going to say, from the teacher's point of view, we were trying to be careful of the things that you guys are talking about, but the tenon actually split off and broke off at one point in time. So there's not really an opportunity to hold it after that. The reason for putting the mortise in there was just to try and distribute the stress around the outside and shape a little bit more, as opposed to whatever. That's also a fairly thick piece still. So
that's the mortise. If you've got an expanding chuck in there, that's what's going to expand that crack.
the piece is actually a lot more solid than it looks on whatever.
Yeah, I think it's good you were standing by. You
Yeah.
would be able to judge that with your
Yeah.
experience. Yeah. That's a good, another of the benefits of using the shop facility and taking advantage of open shop. You get somebody who knows more than you to help you out.
Yeah. Doug was extremely helpful in this. He was my teacher. So my
Thanks, Doug.
kudos go to him.
Is there any finish on the bark at all?
Yeah, I put the same shellac on that as I did the wood. When I first
Very
started
good.
doing woodworking and got my first spray equipment, I used shellac as a sealer before I put on lacquer. And so I became familiar with shellac, and it dries so fast and you can work with it 10 minutes after you do it. So that was the reason I used it. And it was an amber colored shellac. So it gave this ash wood kind of a nice color.
Hold that up
Oh, it's a
again.
beautiful piece. I love it.
Hold it up again. Let's have a good another look at it now that we've talked about it.
If you guys want to learn about finishing, talk to Bill, because he used to make billiard tables for a business. So he knows all there is to know about how matching woods and finishes work. I can tell you that much.
Thank you, Doug. Yeah, I've
Oh, he's frozen. There he goes.
it,
Okay. That doesn't even look like ash wood to me. Are you sure that was ash, Doug?
I didn't say what it was. I'm not sure. I don't
he
think.
didn't know. I took it to a friend of mine who owns a sawmill, and he said without hesitation that it was ash.
Okay.
So
We got to take that.
told me that I kind of felt by looking at that grain in the center of the bowl there, the circular grain, that definitely looks like ash to me. So
Okay.
it was good. It's a pretty bowl.
It is a pretty bowl, and congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next time, choose an easier wood if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I did start the next one already. I took 2 blanks from the shop the last time we were there that they had out there for free. And so I got a once turned bowl that's being turned for the second time now. And oh my goodness, that's a lot easier than what I did with that crotch.
Okay. Randy, how about you today?
Okay. Yes. And I know we're trying to assemble tools for the lathes in the workspace.
Yeah.
One of the things I use is this. This is a modular tool rest. Get it off. And you can buy the tool post in any size you want, and you can buy the tool rest. These are hardened. I'm not sure if they're high-speed steel or exactly what they are, but they are very, very. You are not going to dent this one.
Who do you get those? Who makes those?
Well, a gentleman on the Pen Turners website, he makes them kind of as a service to the members of the website. He doesn't have a website. He doesn't have a thing. You just send him a personal message, and he makes what you want. Now, this one is the same thing, but I actually bought this at one of the symposiums, one of the Mid-Atlantic symposiums. I kind of remember it was something called Southwest Tools or Southern Tools, and they were a vendor, and so I bought this one. This is exactly identical to the ones that Rick makes, and of course the posts are interchangeable. He will make you one in any size you want: 3/4, 5/8, 1 inch, 25 millimeters, whatever you tell them the spec is.
How expensive? How expensive?
And no, they aren't. I don't remember how much I paid for this. I did a brief search looking for it in my checkbook, but I can't find it at the moment. But they made these in several different angles, and one. You won't be able to see that, I doubt, but I've had this for many years, and that's the amount of wear I put on it. So it just does not dent.
Well, you only turn those ditzy little pins. You don't get you're never with the edge of a skew in a huge piece of wood or anything.
Correct. Yes. Although I use mostly skews on my pens.
Okay. Well, can you run down the sources for that so we can so the club can look into it?
Sure.
I think I put it on the website. That looks like it's Best Wood Tools. They sell a modular, he's a machinist in Tennessee that makes the Baxter threading jig.
You know,
Can you post that?
I
Can
did.
you post that in the
I did.
chat? Okay,
In the
good.
chat, yeah. So
There's
thanks,
something about that. There's something about that just rubs me the wrong way. They make a 1-inch steel bar coming out of the banjo and weld a 1-inch steel bar to the top of it. That 1/2-inch threaded rod in the middle has got to vibrate or something. It just can't be as strong as that 1-inch steel bar welded to another 1-inch steel bar. It seems to me there's got to be a defect, not a defect, a deficiency in that joint.
I've used this to make one bowl that's on my lathe now, and it does not vibrate. I turn it so it sticks into the bowl in the interior. Does not vibrate.
I have one complaint about, I've got a couple of tools like that, Randy, and my one complaint about them is that if you set it, if you set so that your tool rest is, the center of the tool rest is at the edge of the bowl, then when you use the inside of it, it tightens. If the tool tightens up, but you can get the situation where you're using the tool rest and the force of the turning actually loosens the tool rest. It can twist if you're not careful. And that's the difference. So you can't use the entire width of the tool rest on things that might twist or whatever. So it works fine for smaller things and narrow stuff, and it works fine if you're using the inside curve, like that big tool you had. But for the longer tool, you can't use both ends of it.
Well, the rests that Robust makes have a stainless steel rod welded into them that does not dent or ding either.
Again, it's not the denting or dinging, it's the fact that the tool rest can actually twist while you're using it. So
yeah, that's what that one looks like it could do.
I had a set of Nova rests that are interchangeable like that, and that's the exact problem I had with them and why I don't use them anymore, because I would find when I least expect it, it starts to unscrew.
What I found out was that you have to put the thing in it and then twist it after you've clamped the post in. That gives you a lot more torque, and you can really tighten that up, and then it doesn't twist. But that's my experience.
I put a hardened steel rod across my existing cast iron tool rest with JB Weld, and it's worked fabulous. 3/16, I think it's 3/16 hardened steel.
That's why I like the Robust rests and others that are on the market that have a hardened steel rod as the working surface. I find that works pretty good.
Yeah, and I think originally theirs were glued on before they started welding.
Huh, well, they're
glue must work pretty well.
Yeah, I would rely on welding, but glue, yeah.
Well, when what's his name makes his hollowing tools, David Ellsworth, he uses CA glue on the tips of the tools to hold the tip in, and then he just heats it to get it out again. So the CA seems to hold up the tool, but again, it's under which condition that it works the best. Anyway.
And which way the stresses are on it too.
I did exactly what Jim did with the Powermatic rest, was this a monster rest, and I think D-Way recommends and sells you the bar for the top. The downside I found is it then made my rest a little too tall for what I liked, and just wouldn't go down quite. Yeah, Jim is shaking his head. But otherwise, the technique and the JB Weld holds that sucker on really well.
Well, since you're talking, Bruce, why don't you take the floor?
Okay, I wanted to talk about coring a little bit. We've talked about coring, but we haven't talked about the cutters. And I ran into a problem literally yesterday that made me a little crazy. Um, my neighbor took down this 100-plus-year-old oak tree, and the tree service was kind enough to dump a few logs right next to my shop. So I have some fairly large white oak that I started to core out yesterday. And the wood is gorgeous, and it is soaking wet. And I have on my one-way coring system, I had put the new, quite expensive Hunter carbide cutter on there, which is kind of a diamond shape. And when I first start using it on the white oak, I mean, the slightest pressure, it cuts it like butter. But I got about halfway in, and this started to bind all kinds of ways. And I tried about 6 different times to make it unbind, and it just, I didn't try and widening the kerf, which is maybe what I needed to do, but I went back to the one-way cutter, and it went right in without a problem. It has a much more complicated geometry, but I wondered what other folks' experience with these are. And you can see how really wet this wood was. It just bleeds right through. It's probably 1 or 2% shy of giving you a shower, but otherwise it's pretty wet. But anyway, what have other people tried this Hunter cutter system and have other experience with getting a clean kerf out of these things?
I have one, but I have not really had a chance to really use it except one time in someone else's shop making a video, and I gave him the cutter, and he had the same experience. It works great going down until it starts making that turn, hitting end grain, and then he gave it back to me. He says, "I'm never going to use it." And by then, I'd acquired one. So
I used it
I
with
don't know.
walnut, and I didn't have that problem. But that's a heck of a lot softer. But I mean, it's obviously really sharp, but the geometry may not be right.
How come you couldn't just widen the kerf?
That was probably what I should have tried. I was
What
trying
would you
to get
have
as
to
much.
What would you have to do that with a coring setup? Where is there an adjustment that you can just jiggle it over 1/16 of an inch?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do that with that system, and I just didn't try it. But the cuttings were coming out so large that I'm not sure that would have fixed it. But that I didn't try that, and I've got more of this to do, so maybe I'll try next. Although I'm tempted to just stay with the one-way cutters, which seem to work fine.
One of the things I've found with any of the coring tools is once you get to the point where you're going to transition into the end grain, the tool gets more aggressive. And if it's got a cup cutter type of configuration, it's probably just overfeeding and just too aggressive at the corner.
The Hunter, it's kind of a diamond shape. It's not a cup cutter at all. But anyway, it's
Well, it is a cupped cutter, but it is diamond shaped. I mean, it's not flat carbide.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
it's still a cupped cutter.
So we think it
done a-
packs up with chips? Is that the problem?
Yes. It
Yes.
definitely is. Binds. It brought my lathe to a stop on the high torque setting. So it took quite a bit of torque in there.
Well, if you
I've
back it
done-
out to clear the chips and go in again, does it cut again or does it just bind again?
I did it about 6 times just like that, and trying to get all the chips out, and it just clearly was not going to cut it clean. I should have tried to open the kerf up a little more, but as I say, the chips were so wide that I'm not sure it would have made a difference.
I've done this.
To talk to Mike Hunter, because I haven't heard a negative comment about that cutter yet. I haven't bought one because my coring days are over. I have the system, but
I haven't had a problem with it either. I use it fairly often. And did you recheck and make sure that the blade height is on center when you replace the tip?
Yeah, it's dead center.
Dead center. I don't know what the problem is.
Dave Dietl's trying to talk here. What do you have to say, Dave?
Well, I've done a bunch I've only done maple and cherry with it, and I've had no problem. It was very, very satisfied with, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 different cores of maple. But on the cherry, I've had the same problem, and I haven't gotten back to it because I haven't had a big enough piece to core yet. But on 2 cores that I've done with the cherry, I run into the same problem. And I need to go back and check my center height and all of that. But I widened the kerf to get around the problem. And so an ongoing thing, just haven't solved it on that cherry yet.
Anybody else on this?
I don't know if anybody else has done any cherry or not.
I have
I
a
don't know if it's- Go ahead.
I don't have the one way. I've got a McNaughton system as opposed to one-way system. And I find that if I'm getting too aggressive or whatever, it binds like completely up and I have to stop. You know, the lathe will stop and I have to back it out and be very careful. So when I'm doing the final part of the coring, one of the things is to make sure I'm not feeding in too fast. You know, the feed rate that you need at the outside and the feed rate that you need at the center of the core is significantly different.
Well, that's because you're changing from a crosscut to a rip cut as you go around that corner. And so the chip changes completely.
I agree.
I definitely was not being aggressive. Well, after the first one bound, and then I was being much more cautious. And it was very light pressure, but it bounded the slightest bit. And Jim Duxbury seems to have some knowledge in this area from his response there.
No, I'm just laughing. I've got the McNaughton system too, and the first 6 bowls you do, you'd swear you're never going to figure this out. Yeah, widening the kerf makes a lot of difference. But I've got the McNaughton system now, so it's not more user friendly. It's not as user friendly. It's much more versatile. You can come in at different angles and you can change your angle halfway through, and that often works. You get in a couple of inches and reposition the tool, reposition the whole banjo, and then you're coming in at a different angle. But you want to squeal belts. You've got to see the first bowl you do with that thing. I was like, God, I thought I'd never get it.
I would ask, what was your tenon size there, Bruce?
If you noticed, I had the largest Axminster chuck, the 114 on there with what they call the colossal jaws, which is somewhere between 5 and 6 inches. I wasn't messing around.
Okay. Well, Toby said that he hasn't had a problem. I would ask, like, if you were going to have like a 13 or 14 inch bowl on there, what size would your tenon be, Toby?
I use the largest I can fit on the bowl, so 4 or 5 inches is what I use. Yeah.
One other thing I thought maybe my problem was with the cherry is I went with a smaller tenon only because I was just experimenting around in that, when you leave a 5 or a 6 inch tenon on the bottom of that money bowl, you have a lot of wood left there. And to keep uniform thickness throughout the rim to the bottom of the bowl, there's a little bit of a trade-off there as far as the amount of wood that's left there. And sometimes I'll just turn that big bowl around and take a bunch of the tenon off of there so it can dry uniformly.
I've got to think the issue you guys are running into is you're changing the cutting direction from cutting into, or you're going from cross grain into long grain, and the chip changes completely. I think at the beginning of the cut, you're going to get a small chip like powder, like sawdust, and as you get in there, it's going to turn into a long strip cut because you're encountering the wood grain differently.
Well, I got strips with this like in the entire way. Yeah. But what I was getting at is the Hunter cutter is just a very, very different geometry than one way, who has changed their cutters numbers of times. I think probably for these kinds of reasons to try and figure it out. And
Yeah.
it has a fairly narrow cutter in the center with other pieces that widen it on the sides. And that seems to be a very effective shape, I think. And that's, I was just looking for other opinions.
Okay.
One last question then. Have you tried it on any other kind of wood than oak?
Yes, I said it worked fine when I did it on a very large walnut bowl. That bowl must have been 16, 17 inches, but you know, wood's quite different than white oak. But I was getting really wide, big shavings. I was not getting dust. I was cutting, and I think that's what clogged so easily. If it was just dust, it probably wouldn't have clogged.
Yeah. Yeah, those shavings are packing in around the sides of it and grabbing it.
Yeah, that's exactly what's
You're
happening.
wedging it tight in the groove. Yeah.
And I know that sound Jim was talking about when the lathe binds up there.
Yeah. It's a scary one.
It is.
I also use an air hose as it's going in. I blast right down in the slot. Sometimes I have my wife help me. She's a turner too, but she blows the chips out as it's going.
I never tried that.
Yeah,
that'd help.
You need a third hand to do it.
Like a gun drill.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to move along. Barry, what do you have today?
I have a question, and probably Troy would know the best answer. But it's what's an efficient way to get the bark off the outside of the burl to reveal those spikes? Both he and Doug have shown pieces that are all spiky around the rim from burl residue. How do you get the bark covering off the spikes?
I'll tell you, I don't do it, but I know people that they take them to a car wash with a high pressure hose. They claim it blows it off.
Well, that was going to be my solution with the pressure hose, but I didn't know if it would also destroy the spikes.
I've never done it,
I've
but
used
they
a
say
pressure
it
washer.
works.
Yeah, I've used a pressure washer as well.
It can destroy the spikes. I actually go to the dentist and get a few used tools and use a dental pick. And so I break the biggest piece off and then go around the edges with a dental pick to pick the rest of it out.
So you pick it out mechanically rather than blowing
Yes.
it off with water.
Yes.
Toby, what do you do?
I wait until I turn my bowl to about a quarter to, 3/16 inch thick, and then just, it breaks off real easily. I don't worry about the rest of the spikes
Okay.
because you're turning them away anyhow.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Duxbury, you're up next.
Okay. I've been turning cubes. These are 3-inch cubes. Anytime a sphere intersects another sphere, no matter what size, it leaves a perfect circle. So if these spheres are turned exactly right, I turned 3 of them the other day just to.
Well, fill us in on exactly what it is you're doing here. You're starting with a cubical piece of wood. How do
about 3 by 3?
Does it have a tenon on it?
No, I
You
grab
it in a chuck.
Grab it on a chuck, yeah.
Yeah.
Then I turn this in.
Yeah.
You put an X on here on the top of this, put an X. You draw the center, the circle, the center's here. You draw the circle so that it goes just beyond that X, the X line on here. Why can't I do this? Damn it. When you put a line across here and a line across here, if you draw a circle that goes just beyond that, this other circle over here is going to intersect it. Right?
Kind of, I guess I'm kind of following you. What's the shape of what do you got inside there? What does that end up being?
That's a perfect sphere. It's got to be a perfect sphere. I use a template.
So you're turning that space out with a template?
Yes.
I'm impressed. I'm trying to, I'm gonna get my head around this and go try it.
It's solid in the center, right? You got like it's
yeah, it's solid in the center. I don't have a drawing on that, but you just put an X across the top of here. And then when you make your template, I actually set this block on a piece of paper and draw around the outside of it. And then from that, I can do the template, cut the template out. So no matter what size the block has got to be a perfect cube. And that's as hard to do as making the thing. But
Okay, well, how do you do that part?
on a table saw and some praying.
And then are the inner holes drilled?
No,
No.
no. When you turn this,
Can I just ask a question? How is the first hold? How do you hold it for the first turning sphere?
you actually
Put it on the lathe.
you actually
So
grab
like
it in a
deep
chuck
lock, don't you?
here
Yeah,
and
The
turn
chuck-
this in.
yeah. So you've got the jaws going across the 3-inch square.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
turn this sphere.
Yeah, I get all the rest of it. It's just I couldn't understand how you got to hold the first turn, because then you'll pick up on the chuck on all the others, won't you?
On every one, you grab it here, use your tailstock and get exact center. It's
That's
got to
it.
be exact.
Yeah,
If it isn't, one hole's bigger than the other hole. Okay.
yeah. And you just go in, and every time you go in, you turn up the hole from the previous.
Don't worry about what's happening. Just turn that sphere.
Yeah.
And I
And it
usually
goes
turn this
automatic.
sphere, I clamp on this side, turn this sphere,
That's
then I
it.
turn the whole block around and I turn this sphere.
Yeah,
And then when I start turning the spheres on the side, I get 2 holes come through as I come to the right size.
yeah. Understand. Thank you. It was just the first gripping of
Yeah.
the first turning.
I'm still having trouble figuring out how you determine how big that's the diameter of the sphere you turn. What's the relationship between that and the cube? I'm guessing it's about 2/3.
Jan, once you put an X on here,
Yeah.
you put the X on here. And then if you're going to do this one, you start right here and you draw a circle with your compass that goes beyond that X. When you go beyond that X, you're into this next hole.
I think John's question though is what size sphere do you put into a 3-inch cube?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Well, I'm thinking,
What is the radius?
I'm thinking there's a mathematical relationship there that math can tell me what size that needs to be.
It probably is.
Well, if that's a 3-inch cube, can you measure the diameter of the sphere, since you got it right there?
Looks like it's a 2-inch, but I'm guessing.
It's
Say
I think it's 2 1/8.
0.67 would be about right to me.
It's 2 1/4. This is 2 1/4.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. 2 1/4 to 3.
And exactly half a sphere.
See what?
Exactly half of a sphere. The
Yes.
depth
Half
is,
a sphere. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, couldn't you make it deeper and get less of the solid in the middle and bigger holes in the sides? Or does it have to be exactly that 2 1/4?
Got to be exactly that 2 1/4 to line up with the ones on the other side.
Yeah.
They all have to be.
They all have to be the same, or it's really going to go wonky
size.
fast.
No,
Otherwise, it's not symmetrical.
Let me get another one. I got a bigger one over here.
He always has these little mind blowers.
So he's using 75%.
Yeah.
I still contend you could change the size of that hole and get different cut throughs.
Well, why don't you try it and let us know?
Because I got other things to turn. I'll let Jim do it.
Here's a bigger one. And then in the center, as I'm doing it, I drill this hole on each one halfway through. So this has more meat, so you can do that. But this is about a 4x4. Yeah, 4x4 cube. I made them 8x8, but And then there's one other way you can do it. This actually can be done with Forstner bits. It's the same type of thing. What I did is this is done with a Forstner bit, and this one's done with a Forstner bit. So you get oval shaped holes. If you do a Forstner bit against a half round, you get an oval hole. The other one is teardropped.
Do you lay awake at night worrying about the world or something and then come up with these things, or how do you, or do you just read somebody else?
You know, when I go to bed at night, when my head's about 3 inches above the pillow, I'm asleep, okay? I don't get anything. I mean, they could bomb the house. I get some, this is the same kind of thing done. I lost it now.
No, you got you. We got you. I took the spotlight off you.
Oh, okay. This is the same kind of thing, but that has a hole that was drilled and opened up so that it's very thin. But
what do you mean opened up?
I drilled a hole first, smaller. Once I get the thing,
oh, I see. Yeah.
On each one, as I'm going in, I drilled a small hole like a 1/4 inch, and then I open it up with a tool. I think I use a 1/4 inch skew laying flat.
Okay, I'm going to give you a challenge. Since can you figure out how to turn these, what you've got is open space in there. Could you make a solid piece looking the same?
A solid piece looking the same.
A solid piece that had the same shapes and geometry as the open space. In other words, just the negative of what you got in your hand.
I have to turn this away, this part.
Yeah, you got to turn that away and make the other and leave behind the other part. Could you do that?
No.
Well, that'd be a bit like David Springett.
That can't be done because you're actually turning. A wood lathe removes wood. You can't leave the outside of a sphere.
No, you do.
It would be a little bit like the emerging box or emerging bowl, and the chucking would be an absolute nightmare.
It would be, yeah.
You might be able to do that on an ornamental lathe, but you can't do it on a regular lathe.
I once figured out. I packed spheres together, and then I managed to turn the space that would be in between the spheres. But this was many years ago. I can't remember how I did it.
I don't remember. I don't know. I don't know. I got one other one. This looks like a 35mm camera, but actually it goes in my. I take 2 jaws off my chuck on a Talon chuck. What have I got on here? I got something.
Somebody's got a screen shared, and I got to kick them off. I can't figure out what's going on.
No, okay. Well, I thought it was me because I'm good at this stuff. Anyway, you take 2 jaws off your chuck, leave the 2 top and bottom ones. You leave 2 and 4 on a Talon chuck. And then this slides sideways to give you an offset. And this indexes to give you different positions on your offset. So all you need is this and this. When you put this together, it clamps down. This is your 0 position on top here.
Why would I want to do that?
You can make, I just made brooches for somebody at the symposium. You can make, you use 2-sided tape on this mandrel thing and glue them on here.
Yeah.
And then you can do offsets like this. These are cutoffs. This is slightly domed. And if you have a dome, this is the center, this is the second center here. But when you make cuts in a dome, you're actually cutting the side out of the dome on the other side of the thing.
Yeah.
So, and this is another one that, I made a whole bunch of these, but these are cutoffs up. That was probably the end of a pepper mill or something that I glue up. And when you get real good and you spend a lot of time, you do these kind of things. That
Oh,
Okay.
that's 3 centers, and it's exact.
It looks great.
your jig looked like it was a model of an old rangefinder camera.
That's
I
right.
thought, I
That's-
thought you were making camera
you
models.
thought I was. You got it. Anyway,
Jump over here.
it costs nothing, and you could spend days working with this. This one here,
That's a really interesting jig. I'm going to play with that.
this one here has you're not using the offset. You're just sliding.
Yeah.
No, you slide it once, and then you index to do the same thing over here.
Yeah.
That's the type of thing that Gary Ranch does over here. Very good turner, Gary Ranch.
You just slide this, slide this over once, and then when you make your first turn, you turn this without sliding this. You just turn this, clamp it again, and do the same thing again.
What do you use to clamp it?
The chuck.
This clamps itself. This is split, so it clamps.
Okay.
As soon as you tighten the chuck down, that clamps it.
As soon as you grab that.
Yeah.
And then rather than put a tenon, if you put a tenon on your bowl that's this size, it actually fits into this chuck. Okay.
Jeez.
Now you can do, this is a 1/2 inch offset in a bowl. Okay.
Got it.
I have a pedestrian question. What'd you make the inside of that one black with? What did you use for the black? The cherry one or whatever, the one that was reddish on the outside and black inside. What did you use to blacken the inside?
This thing?
No, I'm talking about
the cube.
Cube.
That's gesso, I think.
Okay, I was wondering. Okay.
So what's the knob on the side of your jig, Jim? What does that do?
That's a stop. That's a zero stop.
That's
okay.
a stop.
I got you.
That indexes the jig against the jaws. Center it.
I got you.
That's my zero position. I put that on later.
Gotcha.
Then to get an exact, I draw some of this stuff like this. I draw that so I know what I want. To get an exact offset on here.
Lift it up. Lift it up.
To get an exact offset on here, I take a drill bit and set it in between here. Then I can get down to like 30 seconds or whatever. You just put a drill bit in there and you can always go back to that space too.
You're using the drill bit as a spacer.
As a spacer, yes.
So if you want an offset of a 1/4 inch, you use an 1/8 inch drill bit?
No, I use a 1/4 inch drill bit.
Okay.
Yeah. But that way, if you get done messing around over here and you want to go back to that one and redo it again, you can actually do that. Set this part to wherever you were, and this drill bit in here, and you come back into this. This has also got the degrees laid out on it. This is 0, 90, the other way up.
You're opening up a whole world of crazy stuff that I can explore when I get done with the current.
Oh, you can go nuts with this. And if you put this tenon on the bottom of your bowl or your pepper mill or your anything else, you could do a 3-sided pepper mill. You could do anything you want, any offset you want.
Jim, we need a picture of it on the lathe. Some of us, while you explain it well, some of us got to see it in place. We're visual thinkers. Can you get a picture for us sometime?
Do something else. I'll show it. Maybe if I have time, I'll show it. No, you go ahead.
No,
Do
we're done.
Yeah.
Show us another week because they're right up to 11 o'clock, and I'm leaving 4 of us here on screen. So we'll come back and show you our stuff next week. Thank you all for your participation today. It's once again been a fascinating coffee hour with lots of stuff to chew on gone by. See you all next week.
Thanks, John.
Thanks,
All right.
John.
See you next week. Bye.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.